Hello, I'm going to present a use case using the DataMiner web-based dashboard, and we're going to use it to get different perspectives and different views of a PureStorage NAS device, network attached storage device. So this is going to show the power of DataMiner and how different teams can use DataMiner and use this dashboard. So this very first dashboard that I've created, and I want to remind everybody that this is all drag and drop and no coding required. And so on this first page is something maybe the infrastructure team would use. They just need to know if there's any alarms, any alerts, you know, what's the name of the host, what's the host name, what's the storage capacity, is it communicating, is authentication, the API communicating. Maybe they just need to look at, the health of the controllers, the storage controllers, and the voltage and the average temperature of all the hard drives. And as you can see, if something is odd, they can go down here and take a look at the status of just the temperature of all the SSD drives in this NAS. Next, we're going to take a look at another page, and this is more of a qualitative view where we're aggregating all the information that's coming into this NAS device. And what we've done here is it's the aggregation of all the inputs and outputs and all the reads and writes. And so somebody can quickly take a quick view and look for spikes, maybe in the graphs here, to just see if something looks odd, something doesn't look normal, right? And if something does, they can go down here and look at each host group and look at the specific read and writes per second. Here's the reads and here's the writes. Same thing with the inputs and outputs. All the data is here. They can actually click on one of these and actually go look into a detailed graph. Now we'll go back to the dashboard. All right. So the next step, our next dashboard we will look at is this is more quantitative, where you can dig down more into the details to really do some troubleshooting, maybe the tier 2, tier 3, right? So we have some important statistics up on the top, inputs and outputs, read and writes, array capacity, use capacity, what's our data reduction metrics, and our queue depth. What's the average queue depth, right? So uh, on this graph, I'd call it more of a adding and putting in a couple different time series charts. So we can look at just over the last 6 hours and over the last 7 days. So this is the inputs and outputs for a 6 hour time frame, and this is over the last 7 days. And you can easily, zoom in and zoom out on these graphs. And so now we can look at any anomalies. And what's really neat here is we also, below the inputs and outputs, we added the read and writes. So really, these should correlate closely. And as you can see, there's a lot of reads. And at the same time, you can see there's a spike in the inputs. So that's a good correlation. Down here at the bottom, we can actually look over the same time what the queue depth is, right? You really want that to be something that's consistent. Okay, the next page is now I'd call this more of the DevOps page, and and of course I got some statistics up on the top. But what I've done here is these are the host groups, and I've done a query to look at just the top 12, I think, host groups based on the size. And this has 75 terabytes of data allocated, and it's using 11 terabytes. So these other two, this pie chart and this bar graph here, all three of these are really supplying us the same data. It's just different ways to look at it. So a lot of times it's really hard to look at a table and really get a good idea what's going on. But here you can see how everything is allocated on this NAS device, and vice versa down here. Now I'm going to go to the last page to just show how easy it is to manipulate this data. Okay, so what I've done here is This is based on a query. It's the same. This is just like the other page. I'm just going to show you how easy it is to um, manipulate this data, and it's without any programming. So here's the table. You know, I can duplicate the table first, and I want to say now I would like to also see a bar chart. On this bar chart, what would I like to do is my label. I'm going to do the name of the groups, group storages, and then I'm going to just do, let's do the total use space, and then we'll also add the size. But I would really like to have that go from bottom to top. There we go. All right. So that's how easy it is to take some data and start changing it to how you would like it to look. We're going to go back to that last chart. Let's quit editing. And I'm going to go right back to the query that I created to pull this information. And this is how easy it is to change the query. So I have the query that's looking, as I said, just for the top. Actually, it's looking for every host on the server. But I'm going to go down there and actually now I'm going to modify. Oh, I'm sorry. I take that back. I was looking at the top 14. But let's say I just wanted to look at the top 6. This is real time. So now you can just see I got the top 6. Let's go back up and increase this. I'm going to go to top 10. Now I got the top 10. And as you can see, it gives me a good idea really what's happening. But let's take this a step further. And as you look over here, you can see some of these hosts have the word live in it. And that means the ones with live in it are all been allocated for a specific application. And I want to really make sure from a DevOps perspective that I did it correctly when I deployed these. So now let's take this query down here to the next step, and I'm actually going to do a filter. I'm going to say I'm going to filter on the name, contains, and I'm looking for live. So now as you can see, I've filtered out all the other hosts, and I'm just looking at all the lives host on this NAS device. And what I'm looking for is to make sure I built them all the same. So every one of these has 3.5 terabytes of data. I can also see that the distribution of how they're being used is pretty even. And even this pie chart then also gives you another way to visually see that, hey, yeah, from a DevOps perspective, I did build this correctly and I deployed it correctly. So in summary, I just want to show you that it's very easy to gather all the data within the DataMiner platform and create various very helpful dashboards for different teams, anywhere from the infrastructure team to the tier 1, tier 2, and DevOps. Thank you for your time.